Hello, I'm Andrew Hara, the host of the Bomb Squad. I wanted to tell you about my movies. All are available on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one is a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. Finally, the documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, a family of fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Check out Tubi to watch all my films. And now, let's start the show. Hello, guys. Welcome to the Bomb Squad. Before we start, I just wanted to say I don't know what's been happening, but we've been getting steady stream of an audience, and we've been getting like more audience participation and like more people watching our stuff, especially on the YouTube, which is weird because originally I put a lot of work into those YouTube videos, and now it's just us talking, and you guys love it. So cool. I'm very happy that you guys are here. I don't know exactly what we're doing, but if you ever have any suggestions or you want to participate even more, let us know. We're always down to watch whatever garbage you suggest or we suggest. Any movies you guys want, I'm always down to watch anything, except from like Roman Polanski or like a bad person. But even then, it'll be under consideration. But thank you guys for joining us and welcome to the Bomb Squad. Hey guys, how's it going? So today we are covering a special. Everyone covers Christmas movies, but not everyone covers New Year's Eve movies. And that's what we're covering today in 1999's End of Days, Y2K. It's directed by Peter Hames. It was written by Andrew W. Marlowe. It stars Gabriel Byrne, Robin Turney, Kevin Pollak even shows up, CCH Pounder,
I think her name's Robin Tunney. There's no R.
you
I think
Uder
it,
Kier,
I think it's Peter Hyams as well.
Uder Kier, and of course, oh, you know who's in this movie? Mark Mongrolis, who everyone knows is the guy from Breaking Bad,
Yes.
Yes, Salamanca.
and he
Yeah.
plays the Pope. But
Who
of
also sits in a
course,
chair. Yeah.
yeah, he's also in a chair in this movie, and of course, starring the greatest movie star of all time, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Right.
Right. So I don't know who did it last time. Josh, was it you?
Probably.
So William, tell us what this movie is about.
So we have. Okay, so there's a couple of different plot lines going on. There's a baby who is taken from its mother and fed like rattlesnake blood and then given back to its mother. And then we go 20 years into the future and we kind of find out that this person has been abducted by Satan worshippers to create Satan's perfect earthly wife. And the Catholic Church is onto this scam. And so they're actively trying to kill this woman named Christine. And through his own security company and a bunch of crazy events, Arnold Schwarzenegger is also trying to find this woman and protect her. So what we end up with is a three-way battle between Satan himself, Arnold, and the Catholic Church, which if you need three heavier hitters, I'm not sure where.
Yeah,
I didn't
there's a
even
lot
make the
going
New
on.
Year's Eve connection. I
Oh
just
well,
thought this was
okay.
part of.
So
It's
some
there, right?
backstory. Some backstory for this is that this was like Arnold had done Batman and Robin, and of course that was like a huge failure. And so he had taken a long break, and this was after he was the biggest star. I think even in Batman and Robin, he was still pretty big. And so after the failure of that movie, he took like a break, and this was his big return. And so it was obviously a box office bomb. People didn't like it, and I think one of the reasons is that it's like I mean, some people say Predator is an action movie. I mean, is a horror movie, but I don't know. It seems more actiony. Where this
Yeah.
one does lean a little bit more towards horror, and it almost like for a
Nope,
lot of
you
it,
said it.
yeah. It's here's a for a lot of it, it's kind of like a more of a detective story than an actual movie. But William, I'm glad you said it's very dark because Arnold Schwarzenegger saw this movie the first time and he told the director it's too dark. And then the director was like, "Well, it's about Satan and stuff." And he and then Schwarzenegger said, "No, I mean like it's hard to see what's going on." And
My
that's
wife said the same thing watching it. She's
and
like,
he's
"Why is
not
this
wrong.
so dark?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
It's perfect. Like,
what did you guys and of course this movie is playing into the whole Y2K thing, the 2000, the end of the century, which was a big deal. I don't think people born now will remember how big of a deal it was, like the
I
Y2K
know.
stuff. But it was a big deal. This was one of the only movies about that. But what did you guys think of End of Days?
I mean, I thought it was pretty good. I had never seen this movie. I I was expecting very little. I always kind of thought it was going to be like, I thought it was going to be like really like unintelligible for some reason. I don't know why, but I actually had a pretty good time. I got a lot of Constantine vibes. Like it felt like people who
It
made
did feel like
Constantine like
this.
watched this movie and were just like, let's try End of Days again, but with Tanya. I was like, well, okay. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, religious horror is always really fun. Um, I thought that the action scenes were pretty cool. There were definitely some scenes that were just like really weird, and the dialogue had some really strange moments. But for the most part, I was pleasantly surprised. I was surprised that it has such like low ratings. Like I'm surprised it has 11% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, well, and I
Pretty
think one of the
low.
reasons is it's twofold. I think Arnold has this reputation of being like this kind of generic action guy, and it's really unfounded. Because if you think of his films, like yeah, he has Commando, and he has a couple of those type of films. But if you look at like Total Recall, if you look at Terminator, even if you look at Predator, like they're even if they're action films, they're a bit unconventional. And I think him
Yeah.
coming back, people were expecting the idea that they have of Arnold as opposed to what actually Arnold is. And I think I like this movie. There is a couple of problems. One of the problems is tone. Like at the very beginning, Arnold is introduced by he's gonna shoot himself. Like he has a gun in his
Oh, I
mouth.
know.
And it's
The
a
Yeah.
first like
very
3 seconds of his character is just
and it's a very well done scene. It's Arnold's work is like acting his ass off, but then Kevin Pollock shows up. He's like his best friend, and they both work as security guards. And his
yeah,
friend shows up, and he's essentially like the Rob Schneider and Judge Dredd style of
yeah.
sidekick. He's like making jokes. He's like, "Hey, buddy, what you got some old pizza in here? How long have you been eating this?" It's like, okay, guys, we just saw him try to shoot himself in the face. Like,
I know, and he
it's
never
fun.
tries to
Yeah.
kill himself again either. Like that was like
Yeah.
it was like a one-off. It just
Right.
happened to be like really important of a one-off.
It was choppy like that. It felt like a few different ways. I actually first saw this, like, weirdly enough, at like a sleepover when I was 14, and like some
Oh
like
yeah,
one other kid brought it, and I was like, it's like a weirdly sexual movie for
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
a boy sleepover. I'm like, oh, now
Hmm.
he's having sex with the mother and daughter. Okay,
Now they're
this is what
both
this
one
movie
person.
is. Yeah.
Also, I do want to say before the score of this movie, like even if you haven't seen this movie, you've heard the score of it because like they still use it in horror films. They use it in video game trailers. It's like
Yeah, it did sound
it's
familiar.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because I know it's from End of Days, and every time I hear it, I recognize it. But it's used so much, it's crazy.
It kind of reminded me of the score from White Lotus, like
Oh
the
yeah,
show intros, like that. Do 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 do
yeah.
do. Like that's kind of like
Yeah.
what the little voices sound like in the credits. And I was like, huh.
Yeah. So Arnold plays Jericho Kane, who again,
Yeah.
Can we
Who's
talk about
chasing a
how this,
priest named Thomas Aquinas.
and that's the
this is
funniest thing
A
is
real
that
guy.
like
he's in New
the most
York. Oh, go ahead.
14-year-old who loves a
Yeah,
comic book
Yeah.
naming,
yeah.
and and it's her name's Christine York, and
Yeah.
it's Christ in New York,
Right.
Yeah.
and it's like, come on,
And not only
guys.
that, but like William said, they're chasing the whole thing starts because Arnold's been hired. He's like a security guard. He's been hired to like protect Gabriel Bryan, who is the
Burn.
devil at this point. Burns. He burns in hell because he's the devil. And so they like a priest shoots at him, and Arnold like goes and chases him, and he's trying to figure out why this priest wanted to kill this random guy because he doesn't know he's the devil yet. And the priest's name is Thomas Aquinas, and they're in New York, and Thomas Aquinas is like a very like famous figure in the Catholic Church, and so it would be like someone being named Pope John Paul II, and nobody questioning it.
Yeah.
Of course, yes.
Well,
Yeah,
and
P. Francis.
yeah, and Jericho Kane, JC. I mean,
yeah.
there's Christ
Oh,
figures all over
yeah.
this damn
But that
movie.
wasn't
I
for
never heard
us.
Kane. I never got that. I must
That
have
was for
missed
the
that the whole
That was
time.
for the
Yeah.
scholars, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and okay, so it begins, and like there's this girl who was born during a comet, and it's like supposed to signal she's gonna be the wife of the devil and birth the Antichrist. And then there's also a guy who was born to host the devil's body. And it's really weird because we start off by seeing Christine's like being born, and then they take her away and they do like a blood ritual on her, and she's like, but we don't see anything with Gabriel Burns until he gets possessed by the devil.
Yeah.
And I feel like it would have been a
Yeah.
cooler opening if they were like paralleled, you know?
Right. Totally.
Yeah, I was even asking. She's like, "Oh, do you like find out why this particular guy?" I was like, "I don't think they ever bring this up again once
Well,
he like possesses
No, it
him."
just seemed random. Like it was
No,
like he's a
they
Wall
Yeah.
Street guy. He's evil already. I don't know. I thought it was like some kind of weird joke like that.
see, and it's weird because the priest has a line where he's telling Arnold like, "Oh, there's this prophecy that this girl was going to be born and birth the devil." And then he goes, "And a man was also picked." But he doesn't expand on it. It's never brought up again. And like if
Yeah.
you miss that scene or that one line of dialogue, it does kind of feel like the devil just picked Gabriel Byrne because he's hot or something. Like there's no reason for him to pick. I do like so
Yeah.
the devil comes into the bathroom and he takes over the body, and then Gabriel Byrne walks out, he kisses a
Oh.
girl, takes off her shirt.
Yeah. And her husband or just coworker is there and is like, "Hey." Gabriel's just like, like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
such a weird
This
introduction.
devil is kind of like a mean-spirited prankster. He does a lot of things that you would just think like a
Yeah,
cool
for no
evil
reason.
badass
Yeah,
would do. Yeah,
it's
because
almost
he kills everyone in that restaurant, but later he like pisses gasoline to
Yeah.
start a fire. It's like, well, you can start a fire without that.
Right.
You just
Yeah.
you like pranking it up.
But I kind of like that the devil is like he's like a show off boasty guy. Like he just does a lot of stuff for no reason, and it is kind of like the devil is a 14, like the horniest 14-year-old kid in the world.
Right.
And so he's
Yeah.
just kind of going like at one point he meets one of his followers at his house, and the follower's like, "It's you. What are you doing?" And then he's like, "Where's the girl?" And they kind of like do a briefing, and then he like goes to the daughter, and he's like, "Oh, is this your daughter and your wife?" And then it cuts to him fucking both the daughter and the wife.
Yeah.
And then the wife and the
it's-
daughter kiss and they become
One.
one body.
They like meld into
It's such a weird like, but I kind of like it because we don't really see that part of the devil that often, you know.
Yeah.
we
It
did
gave
in
kind of a more cosmic sort of vibe to him in a way.
why
Like,
can't
he's,
I
like,
think of it? The
unexplained.
Devil's Advocate was kind of a sexual devil.
But at the
Yeah,
end, yeah,
that's true. I did think of this. I did think of the Devil's Advocate while watching this one too, and just like weird things happening during sex scenes, and like kind of better than average '90s CGI in both movies.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and the devil in this movie was created by Stan Winston, and then they just kind of made it because it looks kind of like a ghost almost. You can see through it, and it's kind of translucent. You can definitely
Yeah.
tell it has a shape, and so Stan Winston made that shape, and then they used CGI to make it look like it wasn't like it's see through. which is very
Gosh.
impressive. Like, good for them for like
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
knowing.
they
I was
did.
surprised. I was like, oh, this is going to be way rougher than I remember from being 14. But I was like, no, this holds up. Although
Yeah.
there are some things like the guy who breaks into glass in the subway where you're like, ooh,
Yeah,
that's pretty
so
rough.
Oh
But
yeah, but that was a
it's
crazy
like
part
Marvel
though.
still does stuff like that. So
Yeah,
it's just rough
well,
not
see,
for the
and
yeah,
time.
that like okay, so Christine York, like the Christine York doesn't meet Jericho Kane until an hour into the movie. So up until that point, we're kind of following Jericho as he's trying to learn stuff. We're also following her as she's like getting these weird visions, and like she runs into a guy who like tells her that the devil's is there for her, and then he breaks into like class. And so you're kind of seeing all this stuff, and I like that because throughout the whole movie you're hearing these radio broadcasts, like it'll go like over a landscape of the city and you'll hear radio broadcasts, and they're kind of talking about how violence is going up and stuff. And I kind of wish that they had gone more, like we see it a little bit, but I had kind of wished that like every time the devil's kind of walking around you just see people in the background like arguing, you see more fights happening, like as you can see
yeah,
his influence. And they do it at the beginning, but then halfway through they just kind of give up and he's just kind of walking around. And
yeah.
so that's one of the things I think they could have done a little bit more, just to show that tensions are rising in the city. And I hate to say it, but kind of like Ghostbusters too.
Yeah.
We just see people arguing for no reason.
This is very, you know, I do feel they, because this movie is, I think, right at 2 hours or like 2 hours, 2 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
They could have given Arnold a less complicated backstory
I know they don't
because
really flesh it out. Like they don't really
he,
go hard
Yeah.
enough into it.
yeah, I mean, and you see it in the flashback is good because at one point you find out the reason he's suicidally depressed is because essentially some like criminals were looking for him and like, killed his wife and daughter. But like he quit the police, like quit being a detective to go work for a private security company that works with the police. So it's just
Yeah, very
functionally
closely.
he's still this like he's working with his old partner. It's pretty
Yeah.
much the same,
They still
but
answer to
they're
like their police chief played by CCH
right.
Pounder. Yeah.
There's like
Yeah.
literally one scene where he goes to his like private security company where he works just to get guns, and it's like he
And
could have
then
just had
sold it.
his guns in his closet. You
Yeah.
know, this you didn't need to build
Yeah.
this set.
I will say, like, yeah, this movie's pretty cool, but yeah, it definitely could have been trimmed a little bit here and there,
Yeah.
you know?
So
Yeah, it
maybe
had
a
a lot of
few less
problems for sure.
ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I do, and there's like, but I think it's like outweighed by how much fun. Like, at one point, they lose Christine York, and the guy goes to tell Gabriel Byrne, and he just punches the dude's face.
Yeah, he punches right through his head. That was so fucked up.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
And then he's just
It
like,
was
all
really
right, I
fun.
gotta go. And he just walks
And then like
away.
they nail someone to like an invisible cross above their hospital bed.
Oh,
Like they get like
yeah.
scissors and like 90s movies used to go fucking hard. Like that's
Well, and
like
yeah.
I realized that watching this movie, I was just like, this is just like that Fincher visual, like everything was like shot in a trash can,
Yeah.
and everything's just so gross and just taken to level 10. And I
And
was
I,
watching this movie and I was like, fuck yeah, like I want to be back at level 10 more. Like
yeah.
I really missed that level.
Yeah, like there's a scene where Gabriel Byrne goes and talks to some cop, and the cop's like, "You can't come in here." And then Gabriel Byrne goes, "The children you seduce have the smell on you," and it's like,
Yeah,
Jesus, why is everyone in New York so terrible?
I know.
And so, yeah, so like eventually they meet up, and then like Arnold, it takes him a while to believe that that guy's the devil. But he is trying to protect her, because also there's, in addition to the devil and Arnold trying to find the girl, the priests are also trying to find this girl. And there's like two conflicting ideologies where some of the priests want to protect her because they're priests. And there's a group of priests who want to murder her because they're bad priests. And so Arnold also has to fight them. And there's that, again, they're not, I like that. I don't know. Like, I do like adding that little flavoring, but you could have gone without those guys. Like, especially without having them so often. They show up a lot, and then Gabriel Burns just kind of kills them, and then it's it.
Yeah, I mean
They
he's the
also
devil.
Yeah,
they do a weird thing where like when Jericho Kane's like looking for answers about like the priest he killed, Thomas Aquinas, he goes to just talk to like a random priest like from like that same parish or whatever. And that priest like knows all, like he's not involved in this prophecy, but he knows all about it. I was like, wait, in
Yeah.
this world, do all Catholic priests know like the world's gonna end in like days,
And then that
and
same
like
guy,
most of them are just not like can't be bothered, you
right?
know?
Like
Yeah.
he found the
It
right
Because
like
he was
prophecy.
fully aware, but he was like before that, he was not really like involved.
yeah.
It's like, do they just brief them all on
It is
this?
it
You
is
know?
funny that
Yeah.
they had this prophecy since because they see the comment that says that the prophecy is going to happen, so they know it's going to happen in like 30 years, but they don't like send like five extra guys. The
Yeah.
Vatican, they don't like send like a group of people. They don't like train like these priests, magicians or something. It's just like, oh, everyone else business as usual. We'll see how it
Yeah.
pans out.
Yeah,
They're also
just
chill
keep
the
doing
whole
your
time.
Sunday service. Yeah.
Yeah, they're still holding mass and stuff.
Yeah. Like every time they get bad news, they're just like, well, faith is cool. Like it's all
Yeah.
gonna be fine. And it's like, I mean, you were right. Like spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Arnold saves the day, but they don't know, and they're just willy nilly. But like
Yeah.
also on that same thing that Josh was talking about, like when he goes to that Catholic church and he's talking to the guy, and the guy's just like, "Do you think you know about the Lord? You used to believe. You should believe again." And Arnold's just like, "I don't think so. We have different ideas on how life should be." And then the priest is just like, "Well, you need to get out of here." And then he like walks down a staircase
Oh
to
yeah.
his secret lair, which he doesn't lock behind
Right.
him.
I thought
And
that
he
too.
just like swings the door open. It's like, "Go home." And then Arnold walks down the stairs, obviously, and
Yeah.
sees that they have a woman down there stigmata-ing, and the priest's just like, "You need to get out of here." It's like, we need to lock up your shit, man.
These
Go
priests are
away.
very trusting, and they shouldn't be
Yeah.
at all.
They're very blasé about the apocalypse. I do love too.
Yeah.
It does take a little too long for Arnold to believe. Where like it's like, who's this man pursuing us through fire? It's like, come on,
Yeah.
Arnold. Where
Yeah.
she's like, I don't know, but I do dream about him like assaulting me every night since I
No.
was born. And she's like, probably a coincidence.
Yeah. He's like, no,
A
it can't be
lot of
him.
people
You
look
just met him.
similar.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yeah, there's a lot of like funny touches in this to the point where it's like, oh, it's like it's definitely a sillier movie that I remember. Like when he gets the priest at the bottom, he ends up having to like shoot him in like the subway. And he's going through his things and he finds his wallet and the wallet's totally empty of IDs and money. It's like, why was the priest still carrying a fully empty wallet? It's just
Yeah.
like
yeah.
there's a lot of like funny little like prop work moments in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
And like, there's this. I mean, everyone is just constantly making quips for really no. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that it tonally it definitely needs some
yeah. Well,
re-edits,
and
but
Yeah.
and I will say, when it tries to be serious, it does a pretty good job. Like, there's a scene that we kind of mentioned where the devil goes and he kind of tries to proposition Arnold, and he tells him like, "Oh, I can give you your family back," and like they're having like this ideological conversation. And it's very well done, and there's even a scene where like he like gives him a glimpse of his family, and he like changes everything back to Christmas, and like his apartment's cleaned up, and then Arnold's like, "Oh, I'm not gonna help you," and then the devil says, "Oh, let me show you," or he's like, "Oh, you want reality? Let me show you reality," and then like the guys burst in, and it's like he's reliving the memory of his family getting murdered,
Yeah.
and it's a really well done scene. There is still like Arnold shoots the guys like way too
Million
much.
times. Yeah. It's not
'Cause,
gonna
like,
work.
yeah, like the bullets are going through him because it's a memory, but he keeps shooting, like, and then he jumps on one, and he still can't figure it
Slow
out.
motion, like a huge scene. It's like, ah.
Also, there's a line where the devil, like, before he like shows Arnold his family being killed, he says, he says, "Let me give you a dose of reality," and then like he kind of turns. There's a pretty good chance that subconsciously Andrew took that line and put it in another film of mine. And so you might hear it again if you watch any of my feature films.
What was
I
the
didn't even
line?
make that connection.
He says, "Let me give you a dose of reality."
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna
He
happen.
also he has another line in that scene. It's funny because you said like, oh, he's like a horny 14-year-old. Because when he's trying to like talk Arnold into joining him, he's like, "Come on, like you'll be on the ground floor of like the new world. It'll be so cool." And it's
Yeah.
like what a weird
Also,
glide.
also during that scene, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Gabriel Byrne is obviously super Irish. But in that
Yeah.
scene when he's talking to Arnold, he like adopts Boston or a Brooklyn accent for no
Yeah,
reason.
Yeah.
It's kind of like he was
I felt
just
like
trying it out.
like the guy he possessed was a Boston guy,
I
but
did
there's
kind of
no
think of
evidence of
that.
that.
Yeah,
Like, I
we don't
just
hear
Yeah.
him, but I do
yeah.
think that that's funny that he was just like, I'm just gonna have a Brooklyn accent for a few
Yeah. Why not?
lines.
Yeah.
Or it would make sense if like Arnold had a Brooklyn accent. He's like, I'm trying to relate, but
Yeah, I live
I mean,
here. I'm
Arnold
still
has
Austrian.
some. Yeah, he has. His name's Jericho Kane, so he's clearly from Austria.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
Austria,
yeah,
Jesus land, yeah.
I kind of want to talk about the ending, but I don't know if we should spoil it, but I do think it's one of the biggest misfires of the film. What do you guys? Should we spoil this movie?
Well, that's interesting because I thought the ending was very cool.
See it. We're gonna spoil it,
It's
guys. This is a spoiler.
it's
If you haven't
very
seen it, go watch it. Come back. But if not, if you have seen it, we're gonna spoil it. So, like they get to the midnight, and then Jericho King's like rushing. The devil is. They're all by themselves, and the devil comes, and then he kind of like possesses Jericho, and then Jericho like runs and stabs himself, and he kills both the devil. He kills himself, and he like gives him enough time so the devil. It has to be done by midnight, so the
Yeah, it's like
time
a Cinderella
passes.
story.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
and so the devil has to leave. And that's where you get to see the full devil. It's super cool. He's like engulfing him.
Right,
And
which also I want to say I think that was a good thing. I think that's like because like I think why I thought this movie was going to be so dumb was because I was like, how could he ever fight the devil? Like that's so insane. Like I don't even care.
right,
And so watching it now, it was like they have that clock device, which is pretty simple, but like he doesn't have to fight the devil and kill him. He literally just has to run out the clock, which
Yeah,
I
just
thought that
make
was
it
a
so he doesn't
really
have sex with a woman.
right,
yeah,
exactly. As long as
Yeah.
we can keep the ship, premarital, like we're good. And I thought that was a good. I
Yeah.
thought that was a good ploy. I thought that was like a good way to like
Well, okay.
keep a man able to fight Satan because he just has to dodge. He doesn't have to kill.
right. Yeah, yeah. I think that was smart, and that was like a good way to do it.
I did think it was interesting because I was reading about this. I guess the studio was like, "You can't kill Arnold. You're insane." You know. Like,
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
he did two endings.
Yeah,
but
well,
then they went with the one where he dies.
Yeah, here's the thing that nobody should ever say. But I read the book of End of Days, and in the
Oh.
There
book,
is one.
yeah, and in the book, he does everything happens the same. He throws himself and he kills himself, or he impales himself on the thing, and then God, I mean, he takes out the sword and then he heals himself, and like the priest makes a mention of like, oh, God's given you a second chance, and like I understand why they killed him, but I think I like the ending of him getting resurrected because it's kind of like he's been stuck in this whole like depression thing where he's literally wanting to kill himself, and now he realizes that in life like bad shit's gonna happen, horrible shit, but it doesn't mean you just give up. Like you should keep going, you know.
I do see your point because he starts the movie suicidal and ends by killing
And he ends up
himself.
killing himself.
It's not a great character arc.
Well, he
But
succeeds.
it looks cool.
Yeah, he doesn't even
No.
try. He doesn't. This is just a long movie about Arnold Schwarzenegger killing himself. It just takes a lot of steps in between.
Honestly,
Yeah.
the suicidal
why it's
part,
okay.
you almost get rid of that, like keep it. I don't know. It's complicated.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
think
no, I think so too.
yeah,
I said earlier that I thought that the ending was very cool. I guess what I was actually referencing was just whenever Gabriel Byrne turned into Satan. I just thought
yeah.
Satan
the
looked really
full
good.
scene.
Yeah.
You know, I like to
But that's what I meant.
because
I thought it was cool.
I was reading
And it is
about
cool.
it, and
Yeah.
one of they actually, I guess they offered this to both Sam Raimi and Del Toro, and they both were like, "Oh, we're busy."
Either of
him
them.
That
getting
move, Del Toro.
I know, right? Was he busy making Mimic? Come on. But when Arnold gets possessed, that's such a Ash getting possessed moment where he's like kind of thrashing around and stuff. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder if that's like a holdover from like when they thought Sam Raimi was going to do this, you know?
He'll do great. Yeah.
Yeah, I do like the idea of Sam Raimi just being like, "Oh, what if he tumbles around like a dummy for like 20 seconds and then he just
Yeah.
left?" That was the only thing he added,
That was his like, hey, it's crusty.
and he was right. Yeah, yeah. I
during
think
Hellboy, right?
no, I think 19.
99?
I
I
think
don't
it was
even know what Del
Blade.
Toro was doing.
Mm.
Let me see.
Was it Mimic?
Blade
I'll
2.
look
It
it
might
up.
have been Mimic.
Oh yeah, Blade 2. It could have been Blade 2.
No, I don't think so. You guys are crazy.
Yeah, Hellboy was 2004.
Oh, never mind.
This is we look up Google
It
stuff on.
was The Devil's Backbone.
Okay.
Looks like his Criterion movie.
Yeah, okay,
One of
well,
the fancy ones.
he had a good excuse then.
Yeah.
I've never seen it. I don't know anything about it.
It's pretty
Yeah,
good.
yeah, no, it's pretty, and it's one of his most celebrated films. It'd be
Yeah.
like Scorsese dropping out of Goodfellas to do like fucking I don't know,
Something.
yeah, something. You get it.
Yeah.
Something funny that we can't
Smokey
think
and
of
the
right now.
Bandits.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was thinking.
But yeah, I don't know. I do think that this movie. I mean, it's 11%. There's no. I mean, it
No,
is a little
that's
too
so
long.
bad.
Yeah, and that's it's because my wife's like, oh, that's way better than I expected from the reviews that just trashing
Right.
it. It's
That's how
like,
I
yeah,
feel.
no, it's a little long and it's a little choppy, but it's still like
Yeah.
a good time.
I definitely think it was from that. It was like the anticipation of Arnold coming back, and also this movie not being exactly what people wanted, and also it being a gimmick movie with it tying into the Y2K thing. I think all the advertising really hammered home the Y2K thing way more than the movie did, And
Right.
so it was just kind of like it's just that perfect mix of like, the movie was never gonna do as good as people wanted it to be,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think
Right.
everyone's like really busting their ass. It is too dark, but even the cinematography is pretty cool. There's a lot of cool
Yeah.
images.
The sets were all really cool. I
Yeah.
didn't like the paint. Like whenever they would paint like devil symbols on walls, that looked really bad.
Right.
But like everything else, I thought I really liked the weird basement that the Catholics had, like with
Oh,
like
yeah.
all the computers and like the bed with the stigmata person at the end of it. Like all the places like looked cool, and like all the explosions had that just like '90s thriller. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
they make
I
every
you know
flame
what I
so
enjoy
strong.
the over the topness of when he goes to rescue her at the end of the movie. He has like this like submachine gun, and
Oh
there's several
yeah,
times where he just sprays bullets wildly at her direction, and they just hit
yeah.
everyone but her. And it's just
Yeah.
She's
like,
fine.
damn,
Yeah,
he's a good aim with that
he
thing.
really is.
There's also a lot of scenes where he like you wouldn't think that fighting the devil you would need a rocket launcher, but he needed one and he used it.
You know,
Yeah,
it's all
he
about
really went
buying
all
time.
out.
It's all about buying time.
Also, on the personal front, William, did you recognize that church at the end?
No,
That's the church I used to go to when we lived in LA.
are you serious?
Yeah.
For
That's
what?
that's actually
I think
why
I've been there. Yeah,
that's why I picked that church because it was a church from the end of days.
Oh my god! No, I had no fucking
because you're
idea.
still a child inside.
Yeah, because I wanted to be Arnold. Yeah, see, and that church is great. It's in South Central LA with the
Oh, that's so
Mexicans.
funny.
But yeah, every time I see this movie, I'm like, oh yeah, that's my church.
I thought that the downtown looked like downtown LA.
It
Like,
was.
they also had like some like shops, and I was like, that was definitely around like Beverly area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it takes place in New York. I just realized that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes place in New York, and literally the only thing I think they filmed in New York was like the overhead, like the helicopter shots.
Yeah.
It was very clearly LA. Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it was a good movie. I think it's worth a rewatch. I mean, it's kind of hard because it's also one of those things where it's instantly dated because it's never going to be even close to 1999 again. But
Right.
I think it's fun. I think it deserves this. It's like it's the perfect movie for us because it's not like a classic and it does have problems, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of good in it. And I feel like people will dismiss it just because of its Rotten Tomatoes score, because, it has its reputation of being bad. But I think if you watch it, you're going to be like, oh, this movie's pretty good. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in here.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
solidly entertained the whole time. Like there wasn't one moment where I was like, this one. Like the
Yeah.
whole time I was just like, fuck yeah, this is so tight.
Anyone doing their annual CCH Pounder playing a cop film fest? This is one to add to the
Number
list.
one right here.
Yeah. It's
She's
a
definitely a
it's
cop.
it's a 200-year film fest if you're going to watch every movie where CC Pounder plays a cop.
What was funny too, and they don't really expand on this, but it was like, oh, it's interesting to think about. Maybe since you've read the novelization, apparently this comes up. They're like, oh, every 1,000 years the devil tries this. I was like, oh, so did some shit also go back down in the year 999? that
Oh
they
yeah,
just don't
Oh
bring
yeah.
up.
the
No,
one lady.
the only thing I
Was
remember is that the ending was different. I don't remember
Oh,
anything else.
also, did you guys ever see like speaking of like Y2K movies, Entrapment also did that.
Oh
Do you remember
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Like the
yeah.
whole thing is they have to
you
steal
mean change
money.
the ending or had a book?
Well, had the Y2K stuff. Like they had to like pull
Oh
this
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
job off that was going to be in like the tallest tower in Malaysia or something like that, and it had to be from like Y2K. So like the movie starts off like 3 days before Y2K.
That's
And it's like
awesome.
almost just like how End of Days is doing it, like showing like big
Yeah,
buildings with like Y2K ads on the top. And it's like that's the only other movie I know of that takes Y2K into account.
yeah, that is fun. And well, and it was like I don't know, it was such a big news thing where people were like
Yeah,
freaking out, and
Yeah.
yeah,
To be fair, it was going to affect a lot of computers, but they just like all those companies like fixed it in
yeah,
time. Like
it
apparently it was
yeah,
a real problem. They just prepared well. So
yeah, it's one of those things where like after it happened, a lot of people were like, "See, nothing came of it. It was just a bunch of like,"
yeah.
but then you like find out the
Assumptions.
real story, and it was like, no, the reason nothing came of it is because engineers had to like figure out how to fix the
Yeah,
problem, and
yeah,
they
they,
did.
they were
fucking
spending like
asses.
100 hours a week for like the last
Yeah,
6 months. You know, it's funny. I because my wife hasn't seen Breaking Bad. When Mark Margolis shows up, she's like, "Oh, it's Ace Ventura's landlord." And I was like, "Oh, I guess it is." And then, like to bring it back, I was like, "Oh, you know what's weird? I have not read the novelization of End of Days. I've read the novelization of Ace Ventura 2 Pet Detective, and it's like, why did they make novelizations of these movies in the '90s? Because I
I
feel like that's
know.
when we all like that was a thing, you
You're
it
know."
was.
like
It's
you're
not
like
good. It
reading it,
was
and you're like,
originally.
why does Ace Ventura kill himself at the end of
Yeah,
this?
Yeah, is this the alternate ending?
I'm glad they
They did
changed it.
change all the times. It was clearly like a novelization for kids because all the times Ace Ventura has sex in the movies, it's like, oh, he kissed that girl. It's like,
yeah.
okay.
It was nice.
They were. It was weird that they were marketing Ace Ventura to kids.
They had
And
that
he's
cartoon too, the Ace
so
Ventura Adventure
sexual, you know.
cartoon.
Well,
Yeah,
and it is. I would like. I feel like Ace Ventura is kind of underappreciated, but the problem is Ace Ventura has one scene that makes it so that we can never review Ace Ventura.
Instantly
Yeah,
cancelable.
but there is.
Cannot talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah,
what
there is.
scene? What is the scene?
Who's the villain of that
It's the
movie?
villain of the film.
What's their
Oh, yeah, the first
backstory?
one. Yeah,
Yeah, but
yeah.
it is funny because
And what does he do when he finds out?
yeah,
He's really cool about it. He's really
yeah,
nice.
he's
He's
very
really respectful.
accepting, and he's
Yeah,
like, "There's no problems with this, kids. If you ever watch it, that's what he's doing."
yeah.
He's
It's not
also yeah.
humiliation. Yeah, it's cool.
But there is this weird thing that happened, and of course Arnold also was the purveyor of this with Conan the Barbarian, where like they would make a movie that was very clearly like rated R or geared towards adults. Conan is obviously like has sex the whole time. Ace Ventura, while being PG-13, it's pretty raunchy. There's
Yeah,
like a big sex scene, and of course the ending. And then it got so popular with kids that the studios weren't like realizing that the filmmakers were like, oh, the next one has to be for kids. And so you see this sequel that's clearly been watered down. And of course, Conan the Destroyer is like PG and like Conan doesn't kill anyone. And in
Crazy.
Ace
Yeah.
Ventura, it's like Ace Ventura is not that far of a jump down, but it's very clearly like it's not as sexual. Like,
They do play up his
yeah,
like cartoonishness
yeah,
more,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
He's a lot
And
wackier.
it is
Yeah.
funny. It is funny, but yeah, it's definitely like you can tell that they kind of like tweak stuff in between
yeah.
films. But I do think that's a funny phenomenon. I don't know if it still happens. I haven't seen anything like that, but I
It makes
know.
you wonder if this film had been big, would they be like, oh, end of days action figures, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Let's downplay that he's trying to like rape a woman for the whole film.
Well,
Yeah.
what? Look at what I got right here. No, that'd be funny though if I, if I
Yeah,
just
you
added.
have like Skeletor and
Yeah.
Gabriel Byrd as
Yeah.
Satan.
Yeah.
It has like
Skeletor's.
it has like a button that pisses gasoline when you press
Yeah.
it.
See, and it is that thing where it's like you want to be mad at the pissing the gasoline because it's oh man,
So dumb.
it's so
It's
dumb.
so fun.
But it's so yeah, it's
Yeah.
like so inventive. Like, why would you think of that? He doesn't have to do it. He's just trying to kill. He's just trying to kill the guy in the car.
Yeah,
Why
because
not?
we've seen him look at something and make it explode
Yeah.
earlier in the film.
Yeah.
That's very clearly
An
He
entire
could,
within its
building.
scope.
he could do whatever. He just wanted to just be a pisser.
Yeah.
But
Hey, no one's
yeah,
looking.
end
Yeah,
of
that shit was
days,
good. That was
guys.
good.
We're wrapping up our 2022, and I mean it's been a crazy year. We're finally getting some. We've changed our formats completely thanks to YouTube demonetizing everything we do. We've added William, which is a great addition. Josh is also here.
It's true.
But no, I mean,
Fun energy in
I
here.
do appreciate all our listeners. I hope you guys like it.
Absolutely.
And
I think
especially with us, because like I've said a million times, I don't know if I've ever said it on the pod though, but it's hard for our channel to grow because we're not like reviewing new movies. We're reviewing like these underappreciated films. So it's almost like we're forcing you to find us, you know?
Yeah.
And so the fact that so many people are finding us and like enjoying our stuff, I really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you guys. And yeah, hopefully this next year we're going to have a lot of more fun. This January is going to be fun for me. Uh, and we'll of course do our end of the year wrap up, which we always do. But yeah, thanks for coming to the Bomb Squad. Watch End of Days. It's not on streaming right now, but it will be eventually because it's
you could
Yeah.
probably rent it for like $2 on Prime.
you
I
can.
assume.
Yeah. It's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, support independent filmmakers like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. And Peter Hyams.
Yeah, well, we'll see you guys next time on the Bomb next year on the Bomb Squad. Thanks for watching the Bomb Squad. Please, while you're here, give us a like and a subscribe. We really appreciate it and it means a lot.